Good afternoon, baseball lovers. It's your buddy Chop It On, and I'm coming at you with a new concept today that I need your approval on to continue. I see so much concentration on main slates for big, juicy tournaments and stuff, and with my preaching lately, I've been talking about play the winnable contest, the smaller contest that you can actually win instead of the 95,000 person quarter lotto tickets. Those things don't work. You can get an edge in those other games by controlling many of the lineups that they allow you to enter. Or it's just easier to beat 100 people than it is 300. It's easier to beat 300 than it is to beat 1,000. It's easier to beat 1,000 than it is to beat 10,000. So we need to put ourselves in position to win, because where your EV and where your profitability comes from is winning. Top-heavy contests, getting deep into the money and winning those. Min cashing ain't going to get it done. And honestly, if you play just cash games in MLB, the variance will just absolutely whip your butt, because you don't get to win them 60 or 70% of the time in order to really grind up a bankroll. Yes, you can play some head-to-heads and you can do some things that will counter your profitability or counter your variance a little bit, but one of the best ways to do so is to put many lineups out there at the same time, because that diversifies your player pool and your portfolio, thereby spreading out your risk, spreading out your variance, and actually increasing the chances that you get the perfect combination that's going to drive deep into a tournament. If that doesn't make sense to you, then talk to a finance guy. Talk to one of your retirement advisors at work and ask them about diversification and what we're trying to do with our retirement portfolios. They will tell you the exact same thing. So if you like this type of information, we're going to call this the hyper simple slate breakdown, because we're not going to focus on the main slates. We're going to focus on the smaller slates, the expresses and the turbos. I'm not going to do 2 and 3 game slates very often. I'm going to try to focus on anything less than about 8 games. I love 4, 5, and 6 game slates, and tonight we've got a couple of them. So I'd like to show you my process. It's the exact same as on a full slate. And I'd like to pound through these things as quickly as humanly possible, get you the information, get you a little quick player pool, and push you out into the research world where you can see maybe where we're focused on guys on the main slate and how that might change on the smaller slate. The smaller slates, we can identify chalk, and we can actually stack against the chalk a little bit easier. When you have 15 games on a main slate, there's no need to stack against the chalk, because you just take, option number 2 or option 3, or even if you're taking option number 6, it's still better than option 10. The problem is what might be option 10 on that larger slate might actually be option 3 or 4 on a smaller slate, thereby giving you more leverage to actually do damage against the chalk and win GPPs. So if you like that, click the like, click the subscribe button down there at the bottom. Let's rock and roll into today's little quick podcast if we can, and I'll show you where I'm going to focus on DraftKings and FanDuel, because today we're going to focus a little bit more on FanDuel than DraftKings. And of course, if you like the type of coaching and you want access to coaches that know what they're talking about and can help guide you to building better lineups with tools and content, and of course interaction, one-on-one coaching type of situations, or small group coaching, whichever, then you need to click the link in the description down there at the bottom, dfsarmy.com. Use coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P. Deliver that 20% discount off to you and your bank account, and keep that in your bankroll so that you can then really and truly just keep investing in yourself. So bottom line is, we're going to look really quickly at DraftKings today, and under the MLB tab, under the classic style, you'll see 13 game slate and then 2 games, 7 game, 2 games. If I was going to play a smaller slate on DraftKings tonight, maybe the 3 game late, but most likely the 7 gamer. And 7's pretty big for a small slate, so we don't even necessarily need to focus too much on stacking against the chalk there. Everybody talks about how you always have to be lower owned and blah blah blah. Well, the larger the slate gets, the more options people have, the more ownership gets spread out anyway, so there really is no dominant chalk most times. Most of the time it's pretty lower owned anyway. It doesn't really matter what it is, and especially your secondary stack. Your main stack might be the Dodgers. Secondary stack might be the Twins. Well, there aren't going to be as many people taking the Twins on a 15-game slate as would be on a 4-game slate. So the bottom line is, you diversify yourself just by the slate size. So the bigger, even the miniature slates, the bigger they are, the more ownership tends to spread around. On this 2 or 3 game slate, like this one, we would definitely be stacking against chalk. It would become very, very important. On a 7-game slate, maybe not quite so much. And on a 13-game slate, it's pretty much non-existent. You don't even really have to worry about it, honestly. You just have to be in the right offense with both of your stacks and have those stacks go off. And that's what's going to win you those tournaments, put you in position to win. It doesn't matter if they're high owned or low owned, because not everybody's going to be in there with you. But I'm not going to focus too much here on the 7-game slate, because what I want to do is jump over to the smaller slates over on FanDuel, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games on the 705 Express. The second Express is just 2 games. The 805 is 6 games. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The last 6 games of the night. This is the one that I will focus on, but I'm going to do this one too, just to show you how quickly you can burn through a player pool. Okay? So we're going to kick over onto the 705 start games. Should be just down to 720. See that? 705 to 720. So I'm going to go to the research station. I'm going to the starting matchups page for pitchers. And as soon as it kicks in for me, I'm going to scroll up, of course, because default it sets me low for whatever reason, and I'm going to pick the 705 games, right? And I'm going to hold the control key down, hit the 710, the 720, and the 740. It was a 740 didn't apply, did it? Stopped at 720, didn't it? Yeah, stopped at 720. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that guy back off, and I should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games. 10 teams, 5 games. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll over here by K-score. That's DFS grade, which works. But I'm going to scroll over here by K-score and look for strikeout upside. Many people are talking right now about paying down for pitching. I've been saying this for over 2 years now. When you're paying $10,000, $11,000, $12,000 for pitchers, you just don't get the safety you used to get. Kershaw's not as dominant as he used to be. Chris Sale's been tattooed. Corey Kluber's been tattooed. Max Scherzer's had mediocre starts this year. And yes, it's April, and this may change in May and whatever else. But generally speaking, you're not getting the safety that you used to get when you paid all the way up for pitchers. So it makes sense to take a little bit of risk and come down a little bit in salary so that when you do hit that high strikeout potential, it erases a few earned runs and it frees up a little bit of money to stack your bats. So I'm looking more for strikeout potential than I really am anything else. And I'm going to try and find a combination of Vegas odds, strikeout potential, and price. And when I look at price, Robbie Ray's going to stand out to me because Trevor Glasnow and Steven Strasburg honestly are pretty good options on this slate. Very good options on this slate. But it's $2,000 less to take a Robbie Ray. If I was building, say, 4, 5, 6 lineups, I would incorporate a couple of these guys in each. I don't know that I'd go quite down to Pivetta. I might try a Fried. Fried would be fine. 8,300 versus 8,700 would be my sticking point. Where in the world am I going to go? Mats, Quintana, no. Dylan Bundy is a decent tournament start because you can get good Dylan Bundy and bad Dylan Bundy, and it just depends on which one you get on any given night. And for tournaments, we don't necessarily care. We just want the best bang for our buck, and Dylan Bundy can definitely deliver that. But I'm looking at a Max Fried and Robbie Ray. So I'm going to come over here to K-score and DFS grade. And I'm going to see Robbie Ray is a 525 and Max Fried is a 469 on a small sample. So Robbie Ray has more strikeout upside in this matchup than Max Fried. And that's probably going to make me like him more. I will scroll over here a little bit more and look at the Vegas info and see that Robbie Ray is an underdog. Oops. Fried is actually the favorite. Now I'm back sort of to square one. Do I want to overvalue Vegas odds or do I want to overvalue strikeout potential? You know, strikeout potential for Robbie Ray's on. He can hold the offense down and he can end up, winning the slate just based on that and defying the Vegas odds. If I come over here back to the original, I look, he's taking on Atlanta in Atlanta, whereas Max Fried's taking on Arizona at home. So now I might even go over to something like, batter contact rates, batter WOBAs. Robbie Ray, 338 WOBA against versus 323. So Atlanta's a little bit more powerful. Arizona orders the ISO. So we're really splitting hairs here. It depends on who do I really want to attack. Do I want to attack Arizona or do I want to attack Atlanta? Personally, I'd rather attack Arizona. Even though Arizona can hang a bunch of runs on people, I think Atlanta's a little bit more powerful offense. So I would probably lean towards Fried and take on Arizona. Now, again, that said, if you took Robbie Ray, that's fine. If you wanted to pay up for Glasnow and Strasburg, that's fine. These are your 3 or 4 pitchers and outside shot at Dylan Bundy that you should probably be looking at on this slate. Now, depending on what you want to do with your bats, this is what you're going to end up, deciding for how much you're going to pay up and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, if I sort these again by descending, by DFS grade, to show the lower graded pitchers, I can start attacking with bats. I don't have a super, super low grade on this slate. I might have a couple in the bad category here with Pivetta and Mats and whatever else, but I don't really have any super, super low DFS grades. So I'm going to, my offenses, my bats that I stack are going to be a little bit of a crapshoot. So, but when I scroll over here, looking at the very, very bottom, I'm going to see Washington, New York, Arizona. Oh, maybe we get off of Fried and we go back to Robbie Ray. So again, whatever one you decide, whichever side of the fence you decide to fall off on is fine. A little bit of Miami if you think they can touch up Quintana, Philadelphia, whatever. These are all okay, but I'm still not going to discount your Tampa Bays, maybe your Chicago's, Atlantas, etc. I'm just not going to discount them. So again, this for offense is a little bit more wide open. So let's just pretend. Let's look for Sierra. That's another one that we can do. 450 for Derek Rodriguez. So this is probably the first. This is probably my main stack. These guys would be secondary type stacks. So if my main stack down here is the Washington Nationals tonight, then let's just go ahead and assume that that's the case. We'll go into the Trends tab. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to kick off the games that I don't want. So I'm going to end up with the 710 and 720 games, and I've got my five games here coming in. I'm going to take the L7 WOBA, and I'm going to show you two tricks. The L7 WOBA, and I'm going to start sorting by this. I'm going to take out some of the lower plate appearances, honestly. If a guy gets a spot start, I'll re-look him up. But for now, I don't want to look at him. So anything over, say, about 15 plate appearances is what I want. These other guys can go away. Whoops. Obviously, I said less than rather than greater than. Please don't make them all disappear because hopefully it overrides. Thank you. It overrode what I was looking to do, which is good because sometimes I've had it happen the other way. I feel like I've done something wrong and it's been user error, and that's hard to do when you're on recording a video, honestly. But I'm looking at the highest WOBAs possible over 7 days. I want to know who's hot right now. Who's hot right now? And I can compare a little bit of their L14s to their L7s and see like a 500 versus a 700. Austin Meadows has gotten hot this week. Okay, we all know that. 477, 641. Acuna is getting hotter as we speak. 394 on the season, 445 for 2 weeks, 477. 445 for a month, 477 for 2 weeks, and 641 for the last week. So we should be playing some Ronald Acuna, right? We said we liked Washington. These are the bats I'd be looking at. Anything over about a 400. So I'd be looking at Howie Kendrick if he gets the start and Anthony Rendon. That's who I would build my stacks around. Now I may take other options, based on some splits or based on some BVP or based on some other things that I look up. One of the other things that I look up, hard BABIP. What is hard BABIP? Hard BABIP is a differential between hard contact and BABIP. And if you don't know what BABIP is, it's batting average on balls in play, which means, according to sabermetricians, you hit a ball, you put it in play, and as long as it doesn't go over the wall or it's not a strikeout, as long as you hit the ball, then it's going to have a batting average for balls put in play. And some guys are hitting the ball just kind of right at people, a little nubber back to the pitcher, or some smashing line drive to the third baseman who dives and makes a shoestring catch. It doesn't matter. It's an out either way. That goes against your batting average for balls put in play. It doesn't measure how hard you hit the ball. It just measures on what happened. And it is a measurement of a little bit of short-term luck, because the average batting average for a ball put in play, I don't know what it is. Fangraphs could tell you, 300, 310, 260. I don't know what it is. But there is an average. And people will be above and below that average. And when they're below it, they're going to tend to get some good luck happen their way because they've been kind of getting gypped off by the baseball gods, and they're going to start coming back up towards that average number. And you can use that to predict whether or not a guy's running cold or running hot and is due to go the other direction, because everybody's going to tend to normalize between, you drop a rock in a pond and it makes those ripples. Eventually those ripples dissipate and go away. It goes back kind of towards normal, right? Big waves, small waves, doesn't matter. Eventually it kind of goes back towards normal. Well, whatever normal is for BABIP, everybody tends to regress towards the normal outside of short-term sample sizes. So you can use BABIP to tell if a guy is getting some good luck or some bad luck. If you like him running high and on good luck, then you hope the luck continues. If you like playing the regression game, you may say the guy's getting really, really bad luck. He's due to turn around. I like him. That puts you on names like Chris Davis, puts you on names like Joey Gallo, whatever. And these are guys that have, Josh Donaldson, guys that have gotten hot recently. Ronald Acuna 2 weeks ago. Guys that have gotten hot recently, and that also tips you towards those scales. Now, hard contact is just what it says it is. How often you put the barrel on the ball. How often you hit the sweet spot? Exit velo. How hard are you hitting that ball? Obviously, the harder you hit the ball, the faster it gets by the shortstop. His range is shorter. He can't get to a ball, a foot or two further away from him as if it was rolling slower. If it was rolling slower, he can get to it. The harder you hit the ball, the less he has a chance at fielding it A cleanly, B at all, right? So the harder I hit the ball, the more it's going to tend to create problems for the defense. But if I'm hitting the ball really, 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 really hard, and I've got a very, very, very low BABIP, then my hard contact number is going to be very, very high, and my BABIP number is going to be very, very low, which leads to a high differential between the two, telling me I'm hitting the ball really, really high, I'm getting very, very bad luck, which is due to regress. So I might look at a guy like an Anthony Rendon who's hitting the ball really hard, who's not getting great results on BABIP. And goodness gracious, when I scroll back over here and find out that his L7 WOBA is a 478, he's not doing what he could be doing. So he's sort of still, even at 4,700, still kind of either appropriately priced or a little underpriced compared to what he could be doing. He's getting a little unlucky still. That's pretty impressive. So we can use that hard BABIP number to help us find green guys, help us find guys due to regress, and include them in some of our offenses. I like using the L7 WOBA almost exclusively, but the hard BABIP number is something you can include. So let's say we liked Arizona. And of course, since I talked about it a little bit, it's going to delay on me, but there we go. Escobar, is probably the only one. Let's see if we can include any others. Escobar's the one I would start around. And if I come over here to a hard BABIP, okay, I might include a Christian Walker. Carson Kelly if he gets the start. A number I'm looking for typically is around 30% or higher. Something green, something good and green. So I might include those as a three-man stack. If I was looking at Atlanta, I've got enough bats to choose from. I don't need a lot of the hard BABIP type stuff because I've got 4 guys to pick from. Markakis, Camargo, Donaldson, Acuna, right? I mean, I could look for numbers like this 450 coming down to a 439, 429 coming down to a 373, and I can sort of start looking for, guys that are maybe cooling off, and I can kind of, give little pluses or minuses on my player pool depending on how much I like them. I can come over here to the hard BABIP number, of course, and I can see that Josh Donaldson still has room to climb because his hard BABIP number is still showing very, very positive numbers, and he's starting to get some results. So I might like Acuna and Donaldson in a little mini stack, and then I might fill it in with a Markakis or an Albies or somebody like that. Go through every single team like this. Let's do Tampa Bay, and then we'll go on to the next slate. And you would go into an optimizer. You would start goofing with the numbers a little bit and pulling these guys to the top that you like. And you'll find more of them in your stack. You're sort of stacking the odds in your favor in those optimizers when it can make lineups for you because you're starting to say, well, I like Acuna more. I like, Markakis more. I like, Eduardo Escobar in Arizona more. So when I want a stack of these offenses, I want you, optimizer, to include these guys first. And if you don't include them, I want to set them high enough that you pull them in as a one-off somewhere else. Because I'd rather my one-off be Eduardo Escobar than Mike Zunino, which optimizers will tend to give you low-priced punts as your one-off unless you decide. And Mike Zunino can hit a home run, but he's not typically going to win me a tournament as much as a Ronald Acuna would or an Anthony Rendon would. So I would rather have those guys be my one-offs, and I'd rather take a couple of value members in a stack, hoping that inside that 4 or 5 man stack, the offense as a whole performs, and I can get value out of the cheaper guys through correlation. And then my one-off can actually do some significant damage like a Christian Yelich last night if he has a great game. So at Tampa Bay, I'm looking at Austin Meadows, Brandon Lowe, Avisail Garcia, Willie Adams, Tommy Pham. So I've got 5 guys to pick from there. And I'm going to be banking on Dylan Bundy having a bad night with Tampa stacks, and then I might hedge and take a Dylan Bundy lineup somewhere in case he blows up Tampa Bay and has a really, really good start. So I'm going to have my bases covered on both ends. And I would recommend you do the same thing with a couple of lineups. Not a lot going on in the hard BABIP differential in Tampa Bay because Tampa Bay is really running pretty hot. They don't have a lot of guys that are getting bad luck. You got a lot of guys getting very, very good luck. You could argue they're due to cool off because they're getting almost too much results. So in this case, I would just hope they continue a little bit longer, please. Just continue a little bit longer. So when I look at the next slate, this 805 main, 805 all the way through the end of the games. So when I come back to my starting matchups page, we do the process all over again. And I know we're at 20 minutes. We'll make this one small, but this is what we're going to typically do from here on out. 805 all the way through. Now we're going to get a whole separate list of guys, obviously, because these slates don't overlap like the main will. So I come back over here, I sort by K-score. A little bit of explaining what we're doing this first time around, and then we'll really turbo these things up and get these short slates covered in short fashion. So 503 is not super great. I would like to see 520, 530, 540. But I don't want a 380. So I'm looking here, John Gray, Colin McHugh, Kenta Maeda, these types, right? Typically what I'm looking for, lower Sierras. These are going to be my better pitchers on the slate. I look over here to see Vegas odds, and I see a minus 150, minus 180. Probably don't take as much John Gray with the 50-50 odds, even though he's got a low over-under. I probably would rather take a McHugh or a Kenta Maeda. So now we'll go over here and we'll compare price among these top three guys. And we see Kenta Maeda is the cheap. Boom, there's my pitcher for this slate. If I ran 10 lineups, he'd be in 6 or 7 of them. Because he's that overwhelming a difference. And he saves me $1,000 on top of it. I'd have some Gray, some McHugh, maybe some Bieber. I don't know. Bieber is overpriced compared to the rest of this stuff. He's cheaper over on DraftKings. If I was playing DraftKings, I'd include some Bieber over there. I don't know that I'd dip down into any of these guys, even Mergevicius or whatever, just because I don't think that I need that. I think I've got enough out of Maeda. And Maeda's had some up and down starts. All pitchers have this year. That's why I'm going to diversify my portfolio again, and I'm going to take a little bit of Maeda, maybe a little bit of Bieber, but certainly some McHugh and some Gray on FanDuel. That's what I'm looking to do. That's how I'm going to get my diversification so that a bad start out of Kenta Maeda doesn't absolutely wreck me. Right? I'll have a little bit of a backup over here. So be that as it may, we'll sort off by descending again. Come down here. Now we've got some bad pitchers on this slate. Under 30, under 25 for sure. So the bottom 4 names or so, Mergevicius included. So Colorado, LA, Texas, Houston are in some good spots. Maybe some Cleveland, Kansas City. Kansas City and Chicago White Sox intrigues me because if you saw from what we were doing on Sunday, we're looking at overall team ERAs, overall team runs allowed per game, things like that. And right now, the pitching in Kansas City and Chicago both are suspect. They're giving up runs. They're giving up lots of runs. You want the offenses in those games because the opposing pitchers are giving up runs. So I would include them too. You know, if you wanted to get super kooky, you would take Seattle against, Shane Bieber. Well, I guess he's not the Trevor Bauer like yesterday. But, look for somebody here who might be a little bit chalky. You can consider stacking against them. Doesn't look like anybody's going to be too chalky. Maybe it is Maeda. And maybe you need a Cincinnati stack just to hedge your Maeda shares. It could work because if Cincinnati goes off, Maeda tanks, 9 of your 10 lineups do terribly, and maybe the Cincinnati stack saves it all because nobody's going to be on Cincinnati tonight. On these shorter slates, ownership is a little bit more relevant. A little bit more powerful, provides a little bit more leverage because the ownership, the great options are fewer and fewer, so it kind of concentrates the ownership around the few choices that you do have that make sense, which allows you to play the random baseball game, and get a little bit off track there. And then when your night happens, you have a very, very fast or very, very clear pathway to the top of the leaderboards, provided your stack does well. I mean, I've had many nights where Cincinnati scores 8 runs, and I look down at my guys, and it wasn't my 3 or 4 guys doing the damage, and that ticks me off. It happens. It might happen again tonight. All that means is your theory was right. You just didn't get the right mix. Houston, Texas, LA, Colorado. Let's look them up, and then we'll turn you loose. But I come over here, and I come down to the 805 games. and I look again at the WOBA, descending WOBA, the L7 WOBA here, and I look at Houston, Texas, LA, and Colorado, huh? Houston, Texas, LA, and Colorado. So I'll turn those 4 on. Then we'll do this one a little bit differently. Let's go position by position and see who we like at catcher. Well, Robinson Chirinos, Kevin Smith if he gets the start, right? These are your other. So on FanDuel, you don't have to take a catcher. On DraftKings, you do. Scroll over here and see if anyone's leading the hard BABIP category. Nobody. So that's about it. Probably won't be using too many of those guys on FanDuel anyway. 425 Justin Bohr, and then a bunch of trash. Mark Reynolds, I would think, would have been a name in there. Mark Reynolds is carrying the hard BABIP number, so we might include some Mark Reynolds, right? And this is how I would typically build cash type lineups, because I'm not caring about stacking right now. I'm caring about who's the best at each position, who's the best, player to take. Altuve with a little bit of Tommy Lastea. Scroll over for hard BABIP just to make sure, and I see that Lastea's still got room to go. Great. And that's Texas stack, starting with Chirinos. LA, San Diego, nobody really great. Asdrubal Cabrera is probably one of the better ones. Alex Bregman's typically pretty good, but he's not running really well right now. In fact, his hard BABIP is terrible. He's just not hitting the ball hard at all. It's a large portion of what it is. Look at all these BABIPs are great. Asdrubal Cabrera is doing great. He's somebody that we should definitely be paying attention to, especially as part of our Texas stacks. Shortstop, Elvis Andrus comes right up to the top, so there's my Texas stack. Chirinos, Cabrera, Andrus. Coming over here at the hard BABIP number, nothing really stands out there, so I would go straight results, and I would be looking at Correa and Andrus. And now hopefully I see some Joey Gallo, and I don't. He's way down here. 227 on the WOBA machine. I'd be looking above here as much as I could. Delino DeShields even. Marisnik if he starts. Chu, Trout. I wouldn't dip down into here until I had to. Or, unless this told me to. And there's your Joey Gallo on your hard BABIP. Maybe a Cole Calhoun. Mazzara if you're into Texas stacks. Those types of things are what are teaching us or tipping off to us who we should take. So hopefully you took some of these notes as you went. You got a little idea of the process. We'll do it again here in a couple of days, and we'll go through the mini slates again, and we'll call this the Hyper Simple Small Slate Podcast, and we'll make this the focal point for a little while. Hopefully you get into these smaller contests, you get into these smaller slates, you tip the scales in your favor because the decisions are a little bit easier to make. You build a little bit more competitive lineups, understanding everybody's pigeonholed in there together, but you build a little bit more competitive, a little bit, lineups that are a little bit easier, honestly, to slip to the tops of leaderboards because everybody else might be pigeonholed somewhere else. And hopefully you turn yourself a little bit more profitable. And if you like this type of content, of course, you can always find me dfsarmy.com. Use that coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P. Like and subscribe the channel. Like I said, if you want more of the hyper simple short slate type stuff, definitely let me know. Like and subscribe the video. Ring the notification bell so you always get tipped off when I drop a new video. And I will see you guys before too long.